live in interesting times. Today's stories. Central American migrants cross over Mexico's southern border. Colombian police block illegal passes on the border with Venezuela. Mexican activists protest the detention of colleagues. Canadians react to the ban on single-use plastics. Pompeo says the U.S.-Mexico deal reflects diplomacy at its finest. President Trump on border tariffs and impeachment. U.S. reiterates its great concern over Hong Kong extradition law after the mass protests. On the helicopter crash, de Blasio says New York firefighters did an extraordinary job. Plus, Filipinos in Alberta celebrate Heritage Month with cultural song and dances. Hello everyone, I am Jennifer Polantan, bringing you stories from around the globe, and this is Eagle News, Washington, D.C. Central American migrants cross into Mexico from Guatemala via the Suchiachi River as others wait on the border to normalize their situation amid speculation about the contents of Mexico's deal to curb migration in order to avert President Donald Trump's threat of tariffs.
Matan a las personas solo por un celular. Nuestros hijos son raptados para meterlos a maras y entonces ya no podemos vivir. No hay trabajo, delincuencia a morir, corrupción en los gobiernos. Y entonces, ¿qué queremos? Tenemos que salir a emigrar, querramos o no querramos. De hambre no los vamos a morir.
Todos tenemos derecho de tomar otras decisiones, de ir a otro país, pero en las cuestiones legales
Mexico said Monday it will discuss a safe third country agreement with the United States, in which migrants entering Mexican territory must apply for asylum there rather than the United States if the flow of undocumented immigrants continues. Amid speculation about the contents of Mexico's deal to curb migration, in order to avert President Donald Trump's threat of tariffs, Foreign Minister Marcelo Ebrard said he had rebuffed the U.S. demand for such a measure, but agreed to revisit the matter in 45 days. 3 days after reaching a last-minute deal to avoid punitive tariffs over the surge of Central American migrants arriving in the United States-Mexican border, Ebrard told a press conference. In the meeting with the Vice President of the United States, they were insistent on the safe third country issue. Ebrard, who led the Mexican negotiation team in a marathon talks in Washington, spoke as Trump renewed his tariff threats over a secret provision in the deal. Trump tweeted that part of the deal would require approval by the Mexican Congress. He did not give details, and that if for any reason the approval is not forthcoming, tariffs will be reinstated. The comment came as he fended off criticism over a New York Times report that said the key terms of the migration deal had in fact been agreed on months ago. Speaking later on CNBC, Trump said the secret provision was a very powerful tool. He said, quote, "I'm going to tell you that most people understand that the people having to do with borders and illegal immigration and immigration of any kind, they understand exactly what that is," unquote. Colombian police block a group of Venezuelans desperate for food and medicine on illegal passes as they attempt to cross the border into Colombia.
Se está desestimulando la utilización del paso ilegal, del paso informal. Habida cuenta de que ciudadanos que están a espera de pasar, no hay justificación para utilizar estas trochas donde se han presentado hechos delincuenciales, donde han ocurrido homicidios y donde generan extorsión a las personas que pretenden pasar.
Necesitamos de la trocha porque esa es la única vía que tenemos para pasar las cosas para nosotros llevar comida de Colombia para Venezuela.
Several thousand Venezuelans, desperate for food and medicine, packed a border crossing to Colombia on Saturday, hours after President Nicolas Maduro partially reopened it. Maduro had, the day prior, ordered the reopening of the Venezuela border in the state of Táchira, near the location in Colombia where the international community had massed humanitarian aid that Maduro's government refused to take. Early Saturday, thousands of people rushed to the border bridges between the two countries, and crowds in long queues stretched throughout the day. 34-year-old Belki Rangel, about to burst into tears after waiting 3 hours with her daughters, 5 and 8, to cross the Cucuta, said, quote, "My 2 daughters have dengue. They have a fever, and I have come to get care in Colombia," unquote. The head of Migration Service in Colombia, Christian Kruger, told AFP at midday 18,000 people had crossed the border from Venezuela and 8,000 from Colombia. The official data show before the border crossing in February, about 30,000 people crossed the Simon Bolivar International Bridge every day from San Antonio del Táchira, Venezuela, to Cucuta. But containers deposited on the Venezuela side to prevent any entry of humanitarian aid, considered by the government a potential pretext for foreign military intervention, were still in place. 55-year-old Carlos Julio Perez said they have not moved the containers at all. It is so hard getting across. There are so many people on the Venezuela side. He waited hours to go to a medical appointment on the Colombian side. When the border was closed, many Venezuelans crossed via hidden trails linking the two countries, putting themselves at the mercy of smugglers and armed groups. The economically devastated South American nation is suffering from shortages of food, medicine, and other essentials amid a power struggle between socialist Maduro and opposition leader Juan Guaido, who has been recognized as interim president by more than 50 countries, including the United States. Announcing the reopening of the frontier on Twitter, Maduro said, quote, "We are a people of peace that strongly defends our independence and self-determination," unquote. The leader, however, did not say if other key border bridges, closed since August of 2015, after 2 Venezuelan soldiers were wounded by suspected smugglers, would be unblocked. More than 3 million Venezuelans have left their country since 2015 to flee the worst economic crisis in the oil-rich country's recent history. Mexican activists protest the detention of 2 migrant activists, Ireneo Mujica and Cristobal Sanchez, last week, after the United States' threat to impose tariffs over undocumented immigration.
Parece ser que no. Parece ser que el mandato es acabar con ellos, que el mandato es dar una lección a cualquier defensor que se atreva a acompañar y mostrar solidaridad puede ser criminalizado. Básicamente la ayuda humanitaria está siendo criminalizado. El caminar, el ser solidario se está criminalizando. Y eso es una completa aberración para la humanidad entera.
Es decir, Ireneo Mujica es una persona que se ha dedicado a brindar ayuda humanitaria, a acompañar a personas migrantes en su camino. Él es capaz de dar su propia camisa de su espalda a una persona migrante. Ha acompañado a personas migrantes en su camino en la bestia, cuando se suben al tren donde muchos son violados, extorsionados, secuestrados, cuando había muy poca gente dispuesto a arriesgarse de esa forma para documentar los abusos que son cometidos contra las personas migrantes.
People in Toronto react to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's announcement that his government will seek to ban single-use plastics by 2021. Many say they support the move, believing the use of plastic is not necessary.
Well, if you see any pictures on the news or online of oceans of plastic and animals that are getting killed by eating it, whales, turtles, etc., I think it's stupid to have a straw for 5 minutes for a latte or whatever, and then it goes in the ocean. I mean, come on, give me a break. It's just not necessary.
It will affect people, maybe, because they don't have the things, but we need to learn. If it is banned, we are going to learn. People need to learn that the environment is important for everyone. For us, for our children, for future generations. It's very important, I think.
I think honestly that, the plastic has to be canceled out completely in some way, shape, or form. I mean, obviously, I know that it's going to be a difficult thing to do, we use it so much or whatever. But yeah, I think the less of it, the better.
Canada will ban single-use plastics from 2021, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced on Monday, declaring it a global challenge to phase out the plastic bags, straws, and cutlery clogging the world's oceans. Arguing Canada has a unique chance to lead the fight against plastic pollution, as the country is the world's longest coastlines, Trudeau said, quote, "I am very pleased to announce that as early as 2021, Canada will ban harmful single-use plastics from coast to coast," unquote. He said that less than 10% of plastics used in Canada are currently recycled. Each year, 1 million birds and more than 100,000 marine mammals worldwide are injured or killed by becoming entangled in plastic or ingesting it through the food chain. Single-use items represent about 70% of the plastic waste littering the marine environment. A government statement said straws, plastic bags, cutlery, plates, and stir sticks would be among the items banned. The list will be refined based on further scientific research between now and 2021. Trudeau said it is tough trying to explain the problem to his own children. He said, quote, "How do you explain dead whales washing up on beaches around the world, their stomachs jam-packed with plastic bags?" The environmental group Greenpeace called the government's announcement the first step, but said ultimately Canada needs to move towards phasing out a wider array of all non-essential plastics. It called for quick action, so this announcement isn't a single-use election promise. The environment is shaping up as an issue in Canadian legislative elections set for October. Trudeau's chief rival, Conservative leader Andrew Scheer, dismissed the government measure as another gesture without a plan, without any kind of specifics on how this would be implemented or any kind of study on the impact of prices for consumers, on jobs, on how this would affect the small businesses. If he wins the election, Scheer vows to roll back environmental protections, including a federal carbon tax and tanker traffic ban along a pristine part of the Pacific coast. Coming up, Pompeo says the United States-Mexico deal reflects diplomacy at its finest. President Trump on border tariffs and impeachment. The United States reiterates its great concern over Hong Kong extradition law after the mass protests. On the helicopter crash, de Blasio says New York firefighters did an extraordinary job. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will be right back. Welcome back. You are watching Eagle News, Washington, D.C. During a press briefing at the State Department, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says the deal to avert tariffs reached between the U.S. and Mexico reflects diplomacy at its finest.
It reflects diplomacy at its finest. It shows the enduring strength, too, of the relationship between our two countries, and it's a significant win for the American people. The deal continues the Trump administration's commitment, the strongest by any administration history, to confront the tide of illegal immigration and many other problems along our southern border, including the drug trafficking issues that transit there. The president is doing precisely what he said he would do. The placement of 6,000 Mexican National Guard along the Mexican southern border is the biggest effort to date that the Mexicans made, and something that we pressed for with them throughout the time of the negotiations. We'll work closely with them to make sure that that is a successful effort. Those crossing the U.S. southern border to seek asylum will be rapidly returned to Mexico, where they may await their adjudication of their asylum claims. I want to, on that note, repeat my personal gratitude to Foreign Secretary Berard and his team. They worked hard, they were diligent, they defended the Mexican people. I think we made both of our countries proud with this agreement. I spoke to President Trump not too long ago about this. He is grateful to everyone who made this happen, and he had a chance to speak with President Obrador about this as well. This isn't the end of the road. We've got a lot of work to do, implement what we've agreed to, not just in the joint declaration, but the approach to the region for Central America that we agreed to last December. And we have full confidence, as President tweeted yesterday, that Mexico will fulfill its shared commitments.
President Donald Trump said Monday a secret provision of the United States immigration deal with Mexico will require the approval of that country's legislature and warned U.S. tariffs will be reinstated if it is not forthcoming. Trump did not say what the provision entails, only that it would be revealed in the not-so-distant future and will need a vote by Mexico's legislative body. He tweeted, quote, "We do not anticipate a problem with the vote, but if for any reason the approval is not forthcoming, tariffs will be reinstated," unquote. Trump first alluded to the secret provision in a tweet late Sunday, defending the agreement with Mexico against criticism it contained little that had not already been agreed to. He lashed out at the New York Times, calling its front-page story on the deal a fraud and nothing more than a badly reported hit job on me, sick journalism. The U.S. president plunged relations between the two allies into crisis last week with an abrupt threat to slap tariffs on all Mexican imports over immigration. Just as suddenly, a deal was reached Friday after several days of intense negotiations. The Mexican side agreed to bolster security on its southern border and expand its policy on taking back Central American migrants as the U.S. processes their asylum claims. Trump, for his part, withdrew a threat to impose a 5% tariff on all Mexican imports beginning Monday and escalating to 25% by October. Trade experts and business leaders warned of devastating consequences for the economies on both countries if the tariffs went into effect. President Trump discusses border tariffs and impeachment with reporters at a White House event honoring the 103rd Indianapolis 500 champions, Team Penske.
Very soon, it's all done, and they have to get approval, and they will get approval. If they don't get approval, we'll have to think in terms of tariffs or whatever, but it's just another aspect of what we've done. It was all done because of the tariffs, but you can't impeach somebody when there's never been anything done wrong. We have a no collusion. We have no anything. There's no obstruction, there's no collusion, there's no anything. When you look at past impeachments, whether it was President Clinton or I guess President Nixon never got there, he left. I don't leave, there's a big difference, I don't leave. We did nothing wrong except create the greatest economy in the history of our country. We did nothing wrong except rebuild our military like nobody's ever seen before. We're doing a great job, our country's never been stronger.
U.S. State Department spokeswoman Morgan Ortagus reiterates the country's great concern about Hong Kong's plan to allow extradition to the Chinese mainland after record crowds rallied in a semi-autonomous financial hub. The United States on Monday urged Hong Kong to engage with its residents on concerns about allowing extraditions to mainland China, saying that massive protests showed the breadth of opposition. The State Department renewed its concerns about the law, on which China and Hong Kong's local authorities have refused to budge, despite Sunday's largest protests in the city's history since 1997, handover from Britain.
The peaceful demonstration by hundreds of thousands of Hong Kongers yesterday clearly shows the public's opposition to the proposed amendments. The United States shares the concern of many in Hong Kong that the lack of procedural protections in the proposed amendments could undermine Hong Kong's autonomy and negatively impact the territory's long-standing protections of human rights, fundamental freedoms, and democratic values, as enshrined in the Basic Law and the Sino-British Joint Declaration. We are also concerned that the amendments could damage Hong Kong's business environment and subject our citizens residing in or visiting Hong Kong to China's capricious judicial system.
Ortagus called the Hong Kong authorities to consult a broad range of local and international stakeholders. She said, quote, "The continued erosion of the one country, two systems framework puts at risk Hong Kong's long-established special status in international affairs." New York Mayor Bill de Blasio and Fire Commissioner Daniel A. Nigro praised firefighters for their response after a helicopter crash lands on the top of a 700-foot building in New York. A helicopter crash-landed on top of a high-rise in Midtown Manhattan on Monday, starting a fire and leaving one person dead as the entire building shook from the impact. Emergency services fanned out around the 54-story building on 7th Avenue after what was described as a hard landing by a chopper that took off barely 10 minutes earlier from a heliport in the city.
One person died in this helicopter crash. That person is presumed to be the pilot, but we are still waiting for absolute confirmation of that fact. There does not appear to have been any passenger in the helicopter, but again, we're waiting for that. To go into that area, a helicopter would need the approval of LaGuardia Tower, and we need to find out if that happened or not here. We do not know at this point. I just want to start that the firefighters had to deal with a fire well above the 50th story, which is extraordinarily difficult under any circumstance and in the middle of this weather. So FDNY did an extraordinary job today.
Quickly getting up there, using the building elevators, pumping water over 700 feet requires a special hose, special pumpers, which we have available. They were put to good use today, and the members got those lines as quickly as possible up to that roof and put this fire out.
The pilot was the only person on board the chopper, according to U.S. aviation regulators. De Blasio said, quote, "There is no indication at this time that this was an act of terror, and there is no ongoing threat to New York City, based on all the information we have right now," unquote. Video footage of the aftermath of the crash showed a gray plume of smoke drifting away from the top of the building. The City Fire Department said it had extinguished a fire on the building's roof, the height of which posed a challenge to firefighters. Chief of Fire Operations Thomas Richardson was quoted as saying in a post on the New York Fire Department's Facebook page, quote, "Whenever we have a fire on a high-rise office building, 54 stories is over 700 feet tall, we have challenges getting enough water pressure up to the higher levels of the building," unquote. Nathan Hutton, who works in the building on the 29th floor, said he felt the full building shift. When we come back, Filipinos in Alberta celebrate Heritage Month with cultural songs and dances. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will return shortly. This is Eagle News, Washington, D.C., and I'm Jennifer Polintan. Filipino Heritage Month continues in Canada. This time, Eagle News correspondent Gianna Mariano takes us to Banff in Alberta for the celebrations that happened there. Take a look.
Filipino Heritage Month is a month-long celebration that takes place every June here in Canada. It showcases Filipino culture like songs and dance numbers. Here in Banff, a resort town in the province of Alberta, many Filipinos took part of the Filipino Heritage Month celebration. June Kakayuran, president of the Filipino-Canadian Association in the Rockies, explained to us the importance of this event.
Ang Filipino Heritage Month ay parang pagbabalik tanaw sa mga tradisyon natin at kultura sa Pilipinas na dapat na ipakita rin dito sa Canada kasi marami ng mga Pilipinong nasa henerasyon na hindi na nila alam yung mga kulturang na nangyayari sa Pilipinas. May kasabihan nga tayo that you cannot understand the present culture in Canada if you will not understand your own culture.
Also, Marietta Pangan from Jario, Alberta shares with us what to expect in this event.
Unang-una po nagpapasalamat po tayo sa government of Alberta and the federal government for actually recognizing the Filipino Canadian contributions dito po sa ating bansa. There are more than 890,000 Filipino Canadians all over Canada, and there's at least 189,000 here in Alberta. So recognizing us to celebrate our culture, our food, our people, and our heritage for the long month of June is something to be very proud of. Three things po, dun po sa ating mga naunang henerasyon is for them to bring back the great memories. Kami naman po sa ating pong mga ngayong henerasyon, we would like to be the bridge to continue perpetuate the heritage. and the culture. Doon naman po sa mga kabataan, it's for them to realize where they came from. Bakit yung adobo at kanin laging isinasaing sa bahay at lagi kailangang magmano, bakit meron tayong mga bayani at marami pa pong iba. So we are trying to bring consciousness and awareness to the rest of the millennials, to the youth, and to those that have not been able to be in the Philippines for the longest time, or even those that have been born here. So sana po makatulong po kami sa pagpapatuloy ng ating kultura.
Another part of the event is the budol fight. A budol fight is a Filipino tradition that dispenses the use of cutlery and instead practice kamayan or eating with hands. They shared rice, adobo, chicken, egg, and lechon that is placed on top of a long banana leaf.
From Banff, Alberta, Canada, I am Gianna Mariano, and I am one with 25.
Thanks, Gianna. That is today's Eagle News Washington, D.C. Join us tomorrow for stories that matter to you. Visit our websites at eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Follow us on facebook.com/eaglenewsph and twitter.com/eaglenewsph. Thank you for watching. I am Jennifer Politan, and I am one with 25.